7 shoes for the Blackjack stress test of Chuck Temple. Chuck Temple system. So named because the guy who posted it, his name was Chuck Temple. Okay, good enough reason for me. Let me just, here, this is the flow chart of your actions. This is I would call a hybrid progressive system. It has both positive and negative aspects of it. Let me just first say, I don't know Chuck. I've never communicated with him. I have nothing against him, nor am I endorsing his system. It's just a test to see how it works out in a, pseudo real world scenario, as if you've watched my videos, you should be used to by now. Okay, I did cover this in the first shoe. I'm going to do it again now, in part because after running it through 7 shoes, I understand it a little bit better. At least I understand the results better. So let me just talk about it. As you know, I do everything in units, so that one unit can be $5, can be $25, can be $100. Chuck says he plays at $100. Chuck also says that this system works for him, and if it does, that's great. And if you choose to try it, and it works for you, I think that's great also. And if it doesn't work for you, or if it doesn't work for Chuck, not my fault. Not really Chuck's fault. It's all on you. You're grown up. Take responsibility. All right. So starting at 1 unit, we're going to do the positive progressive side first. It's a flow chart. You follow the green lines and the W's when you win, the red lines and the L's when you lose. So starting at 1 unit, you win, you repeat that wager of 1 unit, and if you win, when you win that, you move up to 1.5. If you lose that, go back to 1. As you keep winning, you just keep bouncing back and forth 1 to 1.5. What I would do, I would find it a little bit confusing, and I would need to keep track for myself that that I was in the positive side. So if I would win, or if I would start here at the top, wager 1, and I would win, for my next wager would be a repeat. I would put a little something on top of my stack here to help me remember that I was no longer at the top when I was betting here. And then when I would win, 1.5, 1, 1.5, 1, etc. And then when I would lose, that would go away. I would take this little marker off of there so that I would know that I was, that when I exited the cycle, that I was back at the top. Okay. If you're going to use this, or really any other system that may have a wager that mimics the base wager, find some way to keep track of things so that you know what's going on, or so you know where you are. Bring a condensed version of this and maybe keep your finger on it. I don't see why they wouldn't let you. They let you bring the basic strategy card. And I've recommended this with some of the other systems as well. Obviously, Martingale's pretty straightforward. 1, 3, 2, 6. Obviously, 1, 3, 2, 6. You just have to keep track of where you are there. But Fibonacci can get a little bit odd. Paroli as well. So, your choice. I would recommend that. Okay. Anytime you lose from the top or in the positive side of things, you immediately increase your wager to 2.2. That's why all arrows point to 2.2. Okay. Then when you lose, if you win that, great. You get your 2.2. You go back to the top. Done. Start over. If you lose, you increase up to 4.4. And again, if you win, back to the top. If you lose, increasing to 9.6. I'll just do it this way. Okay, 9.6. Win, great, back to the top. If you lose that 9.6, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 consecutive losses. Chuck says you're on a losing streak. So therefore, instead of continuing to increase your wager like you do with most negative progressive systems, you admit, I'm on a losing streak. I'm going to drop my wager down to 1 until I get out of this losing streak. So if you keep losing that 1, you just keep looping around. Lose, bet again. Lose, bet again. Lose, bet again. Okay. And when you win that, Chuck takes that as a signal. Hey, your downward spiral has ended. Let's get some money back and wager what he's going to call the 40% CLB, current loss balance. Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. So that's going to be a larger bet. And current loss balance being how much you've lost getting to this point. Okay, you're gonna wager 40% of that. If you win, great. You're out. You start back at the top. I'll also talk about some of the downside of that. And if you lose, just like here, you keep playing the 40% CLB again, which means you need to add it up again and increase that wager a little bit more. Increase it some more. Okay. Now, what I don't like about this, and I've talked about this in some of the videos, and I'll talk about it here, is if you play in the stock market, you may be familiar with something called a dead cat bounce. And those of you that aren't, quite simply, a dead cat bounce said, the idea behind it is, if you standing, say, at the top of a building, and you take a dead cat and you drop it off the roof, it's going to fall, right? And that's what you're doing here. This is your dead cat falling down. Boom, boom, boom. And eventually, it's going to hit the ground or the sidewalk. Bam. Okay? And when it does, what does it do? It bounces back up. Okay? And that's your win. And then what happens next after the dead cat bounces up? It starts falling again. Okay? I've never heard of a dead cat that you drop off the top of a building, hits the ground, and bounces all the way back up to you, which is also, I'll get to that. So that's what they call it, a dead cat bounce. I don't know, a little morbid, but it's a term commonly used. Almost anybody in the stock market is going to know about it. Okay, so here's the thing. When you wager this 40% CLB, first you have to know what it is. And so what I would do is I would keep track. Okay, so let's just take it from here at the top, and it would change a little bit if you lost from 1.5, but it's so minor. And I didn't account for the fact that you're up over here in coming into this. And I don't know if you should. There's some things about this system that Chuck, I don't feel like he detailed well enough. So I will just assume that from wherever you are here, boom, you lose. Okay, and I would do this in the videos. I would keep track of it over on the side. There's your first loss of 1. Next wager is 2.2. You lose that. I would keep track over here. So now you're down 3.2. In the casino, they're not going to do this for you. I did this for me in running the tests. Okay, and I've done it in some of the other systems as well, because I don't know how else to do it, especially when you have multiple losses from splits and double downs. So I mean, this 2.2, yeah, it's 2.2, but if you split and even resplit, or let's just say you split and you double down on both of those next hands, it could become an 8.8 loss, which will change somewhat significantly what your CLB wager will be down here. Okay, I'll get around to that and how to maybe make that easier. So anyways, that's not addressed. Anybody out there who is trying to develop a system, please take all of these different circumstances into consideration, because they happen. They do happen. And also, what do you do when you win multiple times? Anyhow, okay, so 4.4, you lose. Now you are down 7.6, right? It's getting hard already. Well, your next wager is 9.6. 9.6 right there, okay? And let's say, and anytime you win, let's just quickly look. 9.6 coming out of here, I said this was 7.6, so you would gain 2 units, okay? That's twice as much as you would get from Martingale. But nope, now you lost. You are now, by Chuck's definition, on a losing streak, okay? So you're going to wager 1, all right? And if you lose that, you just keep wagering it over and over and over again. But for ease right here, let's not do that, okay? You lost 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got to win. Okay, so I'm going to pay you back out of your lost balance, right? Because you're not, that's how much less you're not down. Okay, so we put that there. You take that off. Now what are you down? You're down the 2.2, the 4.4, and the 9.6. That is 16.2. Okay, and it's all right here. Okay, so what's 40% of 16.2? Quick. See, that's the problem. One problem here. You're in the casino. Maybe you have other people at the table. They're not going to let you take out a calculator. They're not going to let you pull out your phone and pull up your calculator app, and you don't really have time. You need to know what that is, okay? So, I mean, what, 16 or 16 times 0.4, so would be, well, as it turns out, it's 6.48, okay? We're going to round that up to 6.5, okay? Because unless you're playing at like a $100 table, you're not really going to be able to do 6.48, okay? So 6.5, all right? Now, if you win, great. You're going to take it out of your lost balance here. 6.5. Oops. All right, good job. Now, you have your other lost balance out here. But once you've won, if you can still see, you're supposed to go back to the top. That means you left all of this either, quote, on the table. Not really on the table. You left it in the dealer's rack. You know, that's not your money anymore or your chips any longer. And how much did you walk away from? Well, you wagered 40% of how much you were down. So you're going to find that you are down, oops, 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 0.7. You were down 9.7. And you have no mechanism to get that back. And now maybe that's okay, because, you know, if you were in, you could have lost that CLB, that 6.5, which, you know, in a well, Martingale, you would have been out. In Fibonacci, you would have moved back 2 spots and then continued back down the progression. Anyways, that 9.7 represents a 60% loss for the sequence. Makes sense, because this is 40%. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with, well, I survived the cycle and I get to start over? And I think this is, you know, part of Chuck's theory, is that he says that you will do so well here in the, you know, in the core of the system, that when on the rare occasions that this happens, where get your 4 losses in a row and then have to bet the CLB, that's okay, because you will make so much in here. That's why that's what the whole test is all about. Now, the way that this gets more confusing is I'm going to bring all this back, okay? You were at the 6.5, which is your 40% CLB. You lose that. That means you are now down 22.7. 40% of that is 9.08. Again, that's a tough one to do. But you would do just do it at 9.1. You know, same thing would be if you get out of that, you will end up being down on the cycle by 13.6. Again, that's 60%. If you lose that 9.8, you're down 31.8. Your next wager is 12.72. I made it 12.7. Again, you get out of that losing 19.1. Again, that's a 60% loss. And by then, unless you've been making money, you're pretty much out. And moreover, Chuck is recommending that you leave the table when you are down somewhere between 26 to 29 times of your base bet. So 26 to 29 times units, which you would have started this, you would have gone into that one being down 31.8. So it's kind of on, I would say it's kind of on the cusp. You know, when he's giving you a 26 to 29 unit range, you know, it's up, you know, maybe you were up a little bit. So now when I ran the test, I did not do that. I didn't let you leave the table no matter how much you were down. And I didn't let you leave the table no matter how much you were up, which Chuck recommends you should leave if you're up by 19 times your base bet. So if you're up by 19 units, Chuck says, great, good job, take your money, go walk around, have fun, enjoy yourself. Don't, and that's probably a good idea too. That's discipline, money management. Again, I didn't do that for the purposes of the test, because you could always say that. You could always say, oh, well, play 5 hands, and if you're up, leave. And if you're down, play 5 more. I don't know, I'm just making that up. Is that a system? Probably. With the number of players out there, that could be. All right, now, so let's get back to this 40%, the first 40% CLB after running a straight through loss. It was a wager of 6.5. In his video, Chuck says, well, he's doing things on tens. So you multiply it by 10, 6.5 would be 65. But Chuck says with a wink that would be 69 units. And I'm not sure why he winks for that. But it's not. So I don't know where he's getting his math. And I tried to figure that out. Maybe he's not accounting for this. The win, in which would bring you up, it would be still, I don't think it's quite 6.9. I think it was 6.8. Okay, so you can maybe fudge that a little bit. Anyways, as far as being able to do the math on the fly, this is hard enough. Here's what I would suggest, is that you kind of discount the losses that you have when you're playing here on a single unit when you're in a losing streak. And even if that went for 10 more hands, that would be a little bit out of the ordinary. It'd only be 10 units, so it would only change your CLB by 4 units. Not such a big deal. What I would do is I would come up with a set amounts for the CLB, sort of like I already did. So you move all the way down through here. You win this. You're down 16.2. So just know that your first CLB, or 40% CLB wager, is going to be 6.5. And if you get out, you don't have to worry anymore. And if you lose it, again, you're going to basically, almost double it to 13.6. And if you lose it again, it's going to become 19.1 if you can afford it. So, just kind of look at it as 6.5, add 6.5, add 6.5. I mean, that will get you, instead of 19.1, 6.5 times 3 is going to be 19.5. Close enough and easier. So I would that's what I would suggest, rather than the CLB is you can just rewind and listen to those numbers that I said, or just add it, 6.5 units, add another 6.5 units, add another 6.5 units as you continue to lose, and cycle around on that 40% CLB. Heck of a lot easier, much less headache. As you watch the series, I had to always stop, add it up, figure out what 40% is. But now that I ran through all the shoes, I can kind of tell you, how to deal with that. Before I move on all the rest of the way, Chuck seemed to have some math errors. Like I said, the 69, in his video, he gave different advice on what to do after the 4th loss. So this is really my interpretation, and it makes the most sense to me. And I watched his video a few times. I didn't just write it down really quick. I tried to pay attention. I think this best represents what he's going after. And like I mentioned before, other weak points, which you find in a lot of systems, is what to do, on multiple losses due to splits and double downs. Okay, and then also I think that this personally is, I get it. He's trying to get you out with some money, rather than just going, well, okay, just buy 1 unit and then, you try to get a chunk of it back. But I don't know if it's getting enough back. That's Maybe that makes sense to you. Not sure it makes sense to me. Okay. Hope that helps. And now let's get into the actual summary. Just shove all this over here. We don't need it. Okay. All right. Here we go. The stress test on Chuck Temple. All right. I'll show you the number of shoes, show you the results, and the number of hands in each shoe. As usual, we got at least 45 out of each shoe. Okay, first shoe. As you know, I run a flat better right next to it, which gives us some kind of indication of, was that a good shoe or a bad shoe. Minus 6.5. I mean, so as far as being a good shoe or a bad shoe, this should come in pretty close to 0, or maybe down half of a unit, maybe 1 unit. But that doesn't mean it always will. It should average to that. And we'll see about that. So anyways, down 6.5. That's what I was getting to. That's not a very good shoe. Okay, and you can really see it on Chuck Temple. Now, as far as all the specifics, he must have gotten into the 40% CLB more than once. And in his video, he's saying that this occurrence of losing 4 in a row is rare. No, that is not true. It can't be true. We've seen it far too many times. Okay, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well. Okay, shoe number 2. Again, Chuck was down 14.6, so his running, I guess, lost balance, to use Chuck's terminology, is now 63.6. The shoe was actually very slightly in your favor. I mean, gaining anything is beating the house, even if it's just half of a unit, putting the flat better at a minus 0.6. So, considerable difference already. All right, 45 hands, 49 hands for the first shoe, 45. That's what our expected minimum is, and we've never gotten less than that. Okay, shoe number 3. Chuck had sizable gains, 26.1, reducing his current loss balance, CLB, to 37.5. It was a slightly bad shoe. Putting the flat better down 1.5, so running CLB of minus 7.5. Still, while this was a big gain, it didn't outweigh this one. It was, better than this, 50% more. But that's only 3 shoes so far, and you're still down. Exactly how we got there, I'm not sure. What I will say is that Chuck Temple does very well. Actually, I'll give him credit in this portion. As long as you don't get past the 9.6 wager, this does make money. It does work. Because as you lose, you're wagering just a little bit more, and you're closing out. It's negative progressive systems work actually well that way, where you like Martingale. Martingale works fantastic if you can afford it, and if you don't hit table limits. You will always close your cycle for a gain of 1 unit. That's great. Chuck, sometimes you close your cycle for 1.2, or sometimes 2 units. It depends. That's pretty good. It's that this stuff gets damaging. So as long as you don't get into that, and it probably did. I think that every shoe we got to the CLB wager. But if you can just win it and get out, you will mitigate your losses. It's just, if that happens to you over and over, or if you lose this, you get that dead cat bounce, you're going down, you win, you bounce off the sidewalk, and then you just start dropping again. That's what's going to kill you. There needs to be a better exit strategy here. I don't know, maybe just play it once, and no matter what, get out. I don't know. You come up with your system. I'm just telling you what I found from this. All right. Shoe number 4. And then, by the way, shoe number 3 was 48 hands. Shoe number 4 was 46 hands. Again, Chuck went back to losing, 36.3, brings him to his current loss balance of 73.8. It was not a very good shoe. with the flat better losing 4.5, bringing his loss down to -12. Shoe 5, Chuck continues to lose 11.35, current loss balance of 85.15. The flat better losing 0.4, current loss balance of -16. I mean, these are a great departure from each other. 85 units, 16 units. You know, I can handle that. You can work your way back from being down by 16. Good luck working your way back from 85. Let me give credit to viewer chip formula for catching that I had a mistake in here. I detailed it in the comments for shoe 5. It changed the results ever so slightly. Nothing significant. Certainly not to close, a 69 wink wink point gap between the two systems. Okay, shoe number 6, 48 hands. Again, Chuck continues to lose 35, bringing his current loss balance to 120.15 on what was actually a good shoe, with the flat better gaining 7, bringing his CLB to -9. Now, I don't remember on which shoe. There's at least a couple of shoes up here where Chuck busted out of his original 50. I let him buy in again for another 50. If that's exactly how you would, and as you can see, he did. Let's say it was on this one. He worked his way back by 14 units. So you could argue, well, you should leave the table. Okay, but then you would just be down 50. So I gave you an opportunity to win back some units. I think that might have been on hands 3 and 4. Go back, watch them all. You'll see how I deal with it. And I've done the same thing on all of the other systems. Whenever they've busted out, I've let them buy in again. I didn't let them buy in until they were busted out. So, let's say their wager was supposed to be 20, but all they had was 8. I didn't let them buy in for another 50 and use another 12 to bring that 8 up to 20. They just had to bet the 8, and then when they lost that, then I let them buy in again. Got to come up with something and find some way to be consistent, and so that's what I'm doing. All right, the last shoe, Chuck eked out a decent win of 15.4, cutting his losses to 104.75 on a pretty good shoe again, where the flat better gained 9, which put the flat better at 0. Break even after 7 shoes for the flat better. What a waste of time, right? But you remember, coming out break even is better than the house odds. House odds should have you losing a little bit. So, in spite of all of that, after all of 7 shoes either being break even or slightly better than house odds, Chuck is down more than 2 buy-ins. And that is with having 2 shoes with decent gains. In fact, this one was pretty good. The problem is that when Chuck loses, as you can see, he loses significantly more. Even if this was, -1 or what, even if this was negative, it's not a -14. That's a sizable win. This is a huge difference in loss. 8 times as much. 3 times as much. This is a gain. This is a loss. This is only slightly more of a gain. So it doesn't really feel like the gains, and obviously it doesn't. The gains outweigh. Now, it's all about, do you get a good shoe, I suppose, or a good run of cards. Like if you had more winning shoes, you could have offset. Would need 4 more. Well, you could maybe your next 4 shoes are good shoes. But when you only have 2 winning shoes out of 7, it's not that 7 is the most definitive number, but it's a good start. I mean, that's a lot of hands. That's 333 hands. That's really the more important number. and that you're in this test, you're down 104, almost 105. You're expecting to lose 0.315 units per hand. So, if that is a $5 table, you're losing $1.50 every hand. That's what that averages out to. Obviously, the flat better this time. He didn't make or gain. He just simply beat. He played for free. Hope you had fun. Maybe you got free drinks. So, to sum it up, I mean, it doesn't, it obviously didn't do better than the flat. If you choose to play this, I think I've given you good instructions and analysis on at least an easier way to do it. You're not going to, unless you're better at math than I am, which is possible. You are not going to be able to keep track of your current lost balance in your head while everything else is going on, and then do that 40% calculation over and over. And especially if you wanted to really stay strict to it, which I did during the test of, if this was a double down loss, that would increase your CLB. If and that must, there were times when the 9.6 I think would double down and win, and that's great. That's a windfall. But when that would double down and lose, that would seriously affect your CLB, which is why I said come up with a static amount, which seems to be about 6.5 to 13 to 19 and a half, somewhere around there, rather than trying to do the math, especially as it changes. And then you just forget about the fact that you lost extra in double downs or splits, and that could get expensive. Yes, it could get expensive if you split and double down, or you split and resplit and double. You could have 4 or 5 multiples of 9.6 out there. Yes, that would change your CLB significantly. Maybe then, knowing that you did that, you would want to bring that up, but you're not really on a formula anymore. You're playing by your gut. If you're going to play by your gut, then just get rid of this and just double down on 20 whenever you feel like it. So that's it. I'm glad to be out of that. I want to get into the next series. Please like and subscribe. I've actually been moving up on subscribers pretty well, so thank you all for doing that. Hope you're still with me, so that you can hear me. Thank you. I don't have ads anymore. Thank you, YouTube. But if I ever can get you up to 1,000 subscribers, then I have an opportunity to make a couple bucks again. Not that even any of that ad money is significant at all. Anyways, that's that. Final shout out. Thank you for Chuck. I give you props for trying and being courageous enough to put your system out there so that other people can critique it. And so I hope you accept it as that. I don't mean to put you down. Like I said before, if it works for you, that's great. This is the first system which has actually been connected to an individual, as opposed to a mathematical concept like martingale or Fibonacci. Okay, so Chuck, just no hard feelings. Just I'm trying to do an honest critique. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.